Hello and welcome to our talk, the augment in Ihanzu as a potential topic marker. And this is a talk given by myself and Jutta Hartmann at the Bielefeld University Linguistics Seminar Series. So quickly, to introduce things, I would like to start by sort of introducing the aim of the talk. So the aim of our talk today is to present and discuss a range of data on the role of the augment in Ihanzu. So the augment, so it's also called in the literature the initial vowel or the prefix, is a morpheme that can precede nominal expressions in Bantu. So in the Bantu languages that have such an augment, there's quite some variation in the syntax and semantics of the augment. It's been considered a D head with a range of different D-related meanings: existence, uniqueness, givenness. It's also been considered an agreement marker or a marker for topicality. So see Halpert 2025 for a review and some references in that vein. Now, in terms of an outline of the structure of today's talk, I'll begin by tracing a background on Ihanzu and on the data we'll be using. Jutta will then sketch the general structure of the noun phrase in the Bantu languages, then focus on augments in Bantu, and then specifically treat the data we've collected on augments in Ihanzu. We'll then explore the proposal we're putting forward in the talk, that is, that augments in Ihanzu are markers of topichood. We'll then conclude. First, as a first note on data, our talk will be available on Zenodo via the DOI listed on screen, as well as the YouTube page via the QR code on screen. In terms of my involvement with the Ihanzu language, I began working with speakers of Ihanzu in 2016 when I first met with Mchungaji Onesmo Dadi in Singida town, pictured here with his wife at their home. We conducted some initial elicitation, and I learned a bit more about where the language was spoken, as well as where I could meet more speakers of the language. In 2018, I visited Ibaga town, located in the north of Singida region, for the first time, and conducted some more in-depth elicitation, this time in a community where Ihanzu is used and spoken on a more regular basis. So here's the photo of Isaac Showery and Musa Gimbi working with stimulus tools in an image matching task. In 2019, I began a project funded by the Endangered Languages Documentation Program, the ELDP, in which I trained 2 Ihanzu speakers in audiovisual language documentation methods. They then spent the following 2 years working with their community to record a large, diverse set of naturalistic speech genres, including conversations, narratives, procedural explanation, and songs. So here in the image is local researcher Sarah Kalayel on the left, working with Mr. John Kipimo on the right. Finally, from 2021 to 2024, I've been working with Jutta to convene a yearly course in linguistic field methods in which course participants work with a speaker of Ihanzu via the internet video telephony software Zoom, conducting elicitation sessions and analyzing their findings to present on novel and under-researched topics in Ihanzu. So here I am with language consultant Nicholas Nalingigwa Gideon in the upper right-hand corner of a Zoom meeting with course participants pictured in the other windows. So the Ihanzu Field Methods course, in addition to a learning opportunity for those who may not have conducted linguistic data collection, it served as a nice opportunity for us to begin looking at novel patterns in Ihanzu and to begin formulating larger research questions and programs, one of which we'll talk about today. All of the material, including the material used in today's talk, is archived and openly accessible via the Ihanzu deposit on ILAR, the Endangered Languages Archive. For a bit more context, Ihanzu is spoken in the north-central part of the East African country of Tanzania, delineated in the red circle in the map inset here. More specifically, it's spoken in Mkalama, the most northerly district of the Singida region, and Ihanzu is most robustly used in the communities of Kirumi, Isanzu, and the surrounds, which are located in a series of hills in the center of the map. Other communities such as Ibaga and Mwangedza are located out on a plain where Ihanzu mixes with other languages, including Sukuma in the case of Mwangedza and Nyilamba in the case of Ibaga. Genetically speaking, Ihanzu is a Bantu language, so in the same language family as languages like Swahili and Zulu, but is specifically a member of a putative subgroup called Takama. So here you can see how words from different proposed Takama languages are similar and different. According to estimates provided by the Language Atlas of Tanzania, Ihanzu is spoken by around 26,000 people. In the face of exclusionary national language policies, use of Ihanzu is certainly declining, so it should probably be characterized as threatened or shifting. Language attitudes, I would say, are rarely negative, but in a rapidly homogenizing national environment, Ihanzu is often seen as part of the old ways, which must inevitably change in the name of quote-unquote progress, however that is defined. And finally, to give a sense of how the language looks and sounds, here's a brief recording of local researcher Samueli Isia and John Kipimo speaking about the genre of riddling in Ihanzu and how this fits into a broader category of pedagogical genres in the language.
Kendelekwa adakihumila lero kutakile kilalike ekali emahumo no wilaliki aimenda palungwi sasa ntakiregwa lero kilalike neke wilaliki aida okiteuzaki
yantawaiti owilaliki ni mahumo yantaiti aida kole ndugu eye ingwi ensokao aleza takire iti yantawaiti alinga paite panaiza ni panaibi
angenya itugwa
anaitu azerenga sigwa ni hekulu.
So I continue with giving you some more background on augments in Bantu more generally, and then I'll concentrate on the augments from our own data in Ihanzu. So Halpert 2025 classifies Bantu languages into two subclasses based on whether the presence of the augment is the marked or the unmarked pattern. So in default augmentless patterns, the nouns without augment are possible in all environments, and the distribution of the augment is limited to specific contexts. And in the default augmented patterns, it's just the other way around, where nouns with the augment are possible in almost all contexts, and the obligatory dropping of the augment is restricted to specific contexts. When we look at languages where we have default augmented patterns, the augment is usually or obligatory dropped in a number of environments. And these environments include the following. So you don't find the augment in noun-noun compounding on the second noun, in denominal derivations. In some Bantu languages, but not others, you don't find the augment with noun class 1a. Terms, so these are proper names, titles, kinship terms, and 2a for the plural forms. The augment frequently drops with vocatives, and then depending on different Bantu languages, you get co-occurrence with higher D layers, possible or impossible, depending on the language under discussion. So higher D layers involve demonstratives, quantifiers, numerals, but also cases like question particles. They are in some languages not used with nouns in delinked WH phrases, and they are not used in the indefiniteness context. There are also some restrictions on WH words and on focus in some of those Bantu languages. So this gives you sort of like a rough overview of the kinds of variation that we find where the augment can drop in some of the Bantu languages, but not others. So this is just like to give you an impression of the variety where we can have the augment disappearing in default augmented patterns in Bantu. Now, when we look at augment drop on the clausal level, we can see more generally that the tendency is that low VP internal argument positions, the augment is absent. whereas with structural case positions, the augment drop is possible only in environments where nominals receive structural case. So that's been argued for Zulu, for example. The augment drops also frequently under negation, and more generally with predicative uses of noun phrases. When we consider the analysis of augments provided for Bantu, we can classify in line with Halpert different types of analysis. So the augment has been considered a D-hat for some of the languages. So then you find augmentless nominals in position wherever bare NPs are licensed. Augments have also been discussed as agreement marking. So to show some sort of a particular syntactic dependency, that's been argued for the augment, or augments have been proposed to be some morphological marking of information structure. So for example, in Petzel 2003 and Petzel and Kühl 2017, it's been taken as a marker of given or presupposed material. So with this background on Bantu, let's look at what we actually find in Ihanzu based on the fieldwork data for which Andrew just reported. So first of all, let's look at the form of the augment in Ihanzu. So what you see here are the noun classes in Ihanzu and the respective form of the augment. So we find 3 different vowels here, 2 different E vowels and the U vowel. Depending on the noun class, you find one of those 3. Quite generally, the augment is optional in a variety of contexts in Ihanzu, and I list here several ones so that one can see how much we actually find the augment to be optional. So first of all, what you find in example 11 is that the augment is optional in subject position. So as you can see here, in 11a, the augment is present on the subject, the boy, but the sentence is still equally grammatical if the augment is dropped. We find a similar pattern for objects position. So in 12, we have direct objects. So here on the hyena, the augment is present in the A case, it's absent in the B case, and both sentences are equally grammatical. Similarly for indirect objects, so this is the example in 13, where in 13a, the augment is present on the girl. In the sentence, the boy had given the girl the bag. And again, we find that it's optional. The sentence is equally grammatical if the augment is dropped. Here is another example for an indirect object. Here, the boy had cooked the child the ugali. So here on child, the augment is present. The augment occurs with different types of nouns. So what you see here, so we tested for a number of different types: concrete nouns, abstract nouns, mass nouns. And what you see here in 15 is an abstract noun. So you have the lie either in subject position in A and B, or in object position in C and D. And in both positions, the augment is optional, so it can be absent or present in both in either version. The same holds for mass nouns. So here we have an example for water. So in A, the augment is absent, and in B, the augment is present. Again, A, B subject, and C, D object positions. And what we see is that the augment is optional in both cases, so the sentences are equally grammatical. What we also find with Ihanzu, and that's something that is not generally the case for Bantu languages, and especially for the default augmented patterns, is that you find the augment on proper names. So here, what you can see in A, we have the augment preceding the nouns, the name Julius Kambarage, and in B, the augment is absent. Again, the same pattern as we had it before. The augment is optional in those cases. Similarly, the augment occurs on kinship names. So in 18a, the augment is absent on mother. In 18b, the augment is present on mother. And again, both cases are equally grammatical. Finally, there is a general pattern for Ihanzu, which seems, to the best of our knowledge, rather being exceptional, that the augment also occurs on pronouns in Ihanzu. So what you see in 19a, where you have a third-person pronoun without the augment in 19a, but with the augment in 19b. So again, you have here the optionality. In other Bantu languages, the augment would be absent in those cases. So what we can see from this, from these general ideas, is that really Bantu Ihanzu should belong to the class of default augmented languages. So the augment is optional in quite a variety of contexts, and the special case is where it actually needs to be absent. And so we looked at a number of restrictions in Ihanzu, and the first set is basically restrictions that are noun phrase internal restrictions of the augment. So what you can see in 20 is cases where the augment is impossible on noun-noun structures. And you can see it here. So when the augment is absent on the second noun, that's fine. But when the augment is present on the second noun, these examples become ungrammatical. Similarly here for 20, the beer drinker, if the augment is absent on beer, then this is acceptable. If it's present on beer, then again, we get an ungrammatical structure. Similarly, the augment does not occur on possessor noun phrases. So what you see here in the pattern is the chicken of the girl. When the augment is absent here on the girl, then the sentence is grammatical. As soon as we insert an augment here, we become an ungrammatical structure. Here in another context within the noun phrase where the augment is not possible. Additionally, we find that the augment is incompatible with numerals and a range of other quantificational expressions. So what you can see here in 22, the relevant noun phrase is two handles. When the noun phrase appears without the augment, this is acceptable. As soon as we insert the augment in these structures, we become an ungrammatical, we get an ungrammatical example here. The same happens with seven handles. So the numerals behave slightly different depending on the kind of numeral you have. But the generalization holds in the same way with seven handles. So when the augment is present, we get an ungrammatical structure in 23b. When it's absent in 23a, it's fine. We also checked for a number of other quantificational expressions. So here, other earthenware, where you see again, when the augment is absent, it's fine. When the augment is present, it's ungrammatical. Same pattern here with all, so the quantifier all. Again, when the augment is present, the structure is ungrammatical. When it's absent, the structure is fine. Similarly, for the expression many, again, augment, as soon as the augment is present, the structure is ungrammatical. Same holds for few. So by now, the familiar pattern, augment absent, grammatical, augment present, ungrammatical. Additionally, we find the augment incompatible with WH words. So we have an example here for what. when the augment is present on the WH phrase in object position in this case, then the structure is ungrammatical. When we have all sorts of which phrases here with this morpheme key, then again, when the augment is present, we get an ungrammatical structure. What is interesting here to note is that this only holds for VP internal which phrases. When the which phrase is fronted, the augment is possible. This looks a little bit like a clefted kind of structure that we find here when then the augment is possible. The augment is also not possible on which phrases in embedded WH questions. So here I wonder which phrases when the augment is absent. Here on the hyena, then this is a grammatical structure. As soon as the augment is present, here it becomes ungrammatical. Additionally, and this pattern is something that we know from other Ihanzu languages, is that when we have the vocative form of nouns, then the augment is also not possible. Finally, the augment is incompatible with predicative noun phrase, except when we have like a specific emphasis. So here is the basic case. The boy is an Ihanzu person. If we try to put the augment on Ihanzu person, then these become clearly ungrammatical. There is some way to have the augment if you really, if you want to focus and put some emphasis on this noun phrase. So here in a yes/no question and the corresponding answer in 33. So when we look at restrictions in the sentential distribution, we have seen above that there are a number of different argument positions where the augment is really optional. But we do find it with a number of cases of modifiers where only with clause internal modifiers the augment is excluded, whereas clause initially the augment is possible. So let's look first at this example. The boy hit the hyena 3 times. So here we have a modifier. This modifier is here a clause final, so inside the verb phrase. And what we see here is that the augment cannot occur. So as soon as we have the augment, we have an ungrammatical sentence. Similarly, for this case in the morning, again, VP internally, and then if we try to add the augment, these structures become ungrammatical. What we do see, however, that when we front the structure, the modifier, then what we get is that the augment is possible, but again, it's still optional, but it is possible to have the augment in the fronted position with a clause initial modifier. So now we have seen a number of restrictions that we see, and so I now turn to our proposal, how to put all these different options together. So first of all, we want to consider the hypothesis that the augment is actually a marker of topichood. And if we think about topichood in the sense of aboutness topic in Reinhardt's sense, then it's clear that it's ruled out with a number of phrases that are usually illicit as non-contrastive aboutness topics. And this involves all sorts of quantified noun phrases. They cannot be topics. Predicative noun phrases cannot be topics, and WH words cannot be topics. So that's already a whole set of phrases where the hypothesis that this is actually a topic marker would account for the restrictions that we find. Second, the fact that only fronted sentential adverbials can occur with the augment is sort of matches this hypothesis of having the augment as a marker of aboutness topic, because frame setting and aboutness topic share crucial features. So this has been claimed for a number of languages and in a number of discussions. Finally, if the augment is some topic marker, we can explain why it does not occur on other noun phrases which are internal, on other nouns which are internal to the noun phrase. So if you have NN compounds, then the second noun phrase would be internal to the NP, but then sort of the whole noun phrase would be marked by the augment. So then the augment should precede the noun, the head noun. Similarly, the same holds for possessor noun phrases. So fourth, it is not surprising that it can co-occur with proper names and pronouns, because the occurrence of the pronouns and the augments in pronouns can be given information, but they can, on top of that, being topical. So that's what we would expect if we have a marker of a topic in these cases. And this seems to be something very specific for Ihanzu. And in comparison to other default augmented languages, this seems to be something special, and this sort of argues against the augment being a D head. So our proposal that it's actually a topic marker does much account for the data much more adequately. Then when we look at frontic objects, they seem to require the augment. So this could be something that objects are not typical topics, but when they are fronted, then they require the augment, and there could be some sort of a mixture of having a topic marking on initial objects. Now, while this hypothesis of the augment taking the augment as a topic marker is quite successful for the data that I just presented, we also face a number of challenges for this hypothesis. So the first and foremost one is that when we test it for a specific context, which is a typical context for aboutness topic, so tell me something about X, then what we observe is that in this context, to have the augment is not obligatory. So this is surprising if the augment is a topic marker and is an obligatory topic marker. So then we would expect that the augment has to be present in these cases, but we find it is still optional. Additionally, when we ask for a subject, so when we have a subject being the topic, additionally, the object can still have the augment or not. So again, this, so here in the second B case, the augment is present on the object. So what we can see here is that even if this is a topic marker, even if we set a topic, then still the augment is possible on some other noun phrase. And again, this is a challenge to the topic marking hypothesis. Here we have an example where we tried actually to have like some sort of more of an object context, but we ended up having a subject argument still. So tell me something about the hyena. What you get is here that the hyena is still the subject, and again, the augment is optional in those cases. What we are missing so far is really test sentences in which the aboutness topic is in object position, so that we have like a clear test for this fronted object, whether when we set it as an aboutness topic, that we really need to front it in those cases. So that's how far we got with the topic analysis for the augment. So I can jump to the conclusion so far. So what we can see is that the augment can be analyzed as an aboutness topic marker. However, if it is, then mostly optionally so. So what we have seen that with unexpected aboutness topics, object, it seems obligatory, but further data needs to be collected for objects as aboutness topics, and in order to further strengthen this latter point. That's it. Thanks a lot for your attention, and thanks to all our informants, local researchers, and help that we got from people working with the Ihanzu data. Thanks.